Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace, reporting live here at Birdland Theater here in New York City for the official New York record release performance of pianist, composer, and educator Laszio Gardony's brand new Sunnyside Records release, La Marseillaise, which is now available on iTunes, Amazon.com, and CD Baby. Now, this is his fourth solo piano recording, his 12th in his career. And this album, he's doing some very interesting things, paying homage to the great piano, great composers and pianists, including the great Laszio Gardony, in which he does a stirring tradition of Misty, as well as he's doing some improvisation on this record. As you know, Mr. Gardony hails from Hungary, and he came to America to study at the famed Berklee School of Music, which he continues to be a professor to this day. I had a chance to sit down to break bread with Mr. Gardony to talk about his role as an educator. Also, we reflect on some of the very important solo piano records and how it influenced him to this day, as well as talk about why it's important to improvise and use improvisation when it comes to creating your music as well as practicing your craft on your instrument. this is your fourth solo piano recording, your 12th in your career. What is it about playing in a solo setting? What does it do for you as a musician and as a pianist?
I think it's the nicest thing about solo playing is that you are the orchestra, right? So you have to take care of everything, rhythm, harmony, melody, and texture. So it makes you focus on a very high level on the entire process of music making, you know? A lot of the playing, when you play with other people, is interaction between the players, right? So you use your skills and your ear and your rhythm and your harmonies to suggest things, and then there's a lot of give and take. But as you create music in solo, that give and take is happening within your own system, if you will. So there is a lot of conversation that you create on the piano. Because otherwise, solo piano wouldn't be interesting. If you don't sound like an orchestra, where there's a lot of interaction and communication going on, it would be just a pianist who is missing a bass player and the drummer.
Now, tell the viewers out here, this is a live recording. You
Yes.
recorded this live, so
Yes.
this is not even trial by error. This is just pure fire.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. Yes, I really believe that the best way to present being in the moment as an improviser and as a composer as well is to put out some live albums. Yeah, we have one with the trio. It's called Ever Before, Ever After. It was recorded live to 2 tracks, so there was no mixing even involved at WGBH Radio. And I have a live album with my sextet, Bill Pierce, Don Braden, Stan Strickland, Joran Israel, and John Lockwood, and myself, also recorded live. And there is just an undescribable energy in a live recording. But of course, when we are in the studio with my band, or when I record solo piano in the studio, I approach it the same way. It has to be first take, you know, because otherwise you lose a major essence of what makes jazz so unique. You know, we're doing our homework for years and years. You have to study, you have to figure things out, you have to challenge yourself a lot. But at the end, you are in the moment and you play what you hear based on what you learned, but basically completely working on inspiration only. That's your energy, that's your fuel at that moment.
Now, there's some very interesting aspects to this recording. You do 2 standards,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's 2 compositions where it's just free form.
Yeah.
It's avant-garde. It's ideas, no melodies. It's just ideas and chords put together. Tell me about that process.
Yeah, I mean, there are 2 of these on this album, as you said. One of them was actually involving a little bit the audience. I know it's a little unusual to do it, but I felt it's nice to have them suggest 4 notes, audience members. And then I would create a piece starting out with those 4 notes, not as a gimmick by all means, but as a way to invite them into the creative process. So when they know what 4 notes they picked, then they see how you create music out of an idea. And the other piece was completely improvised in a sense that there was no communication with the audience or anybody else. Actually, I have another album which is full with improvised pieces. The previous solo piano one, Serious Play. It's also a lot of improvised pieces. We have an innate sense of form when you improvise for so many years as I have, because I started when I was like 3-4 years old. I was already making things up. So it's not just going on endlessly, but there is a sense of form and there's a sense of melodies and harmonies that kind of being developed. Not because you consciously want to, but because your inspiration wants to. So that's a beautiful thing about it, that at the end when you listen back to it, you say, oh, here is a little bit of a theme and you developed it. But when you are in the moment, it's just happening because you hear the next note and the next note and the next note.
Laszlo, you hail from Hungary,
Hmm.
and back home you graduated from the conservatory there,
Hmm.
and then your beginning training was in classical.
Oh yeah, but I wouldn't put it that way because before even I started classical studies, which was maybe 7 years or old or so, I was already making little things up on my own. So when I started studying seriously classical music, I was already connecting to the instrument much more creatively, you know. So as much as I took my classical studies seriously, I always preferred um, groove-based music like the blues, like later jazz and rock, and also preferred improvisation or composition. So if I learn a classical piece, I try to understand the composer's mind,
Now,
not like learning the dots
right,
on the
right,
paper,
right,
you
right,
know.
right, right. Now I have to ask you a question. I read something that was very interesting. One of
Hmm.
your favorite jazz records is one of the basic jazz records that I love and I
Oh,
grew up on.
that's interesting. Which one
Les
is it?
McCann,
Oh,
Les
of
McCann,
course.
Live Swiss Movement. You know, it's totally diametrically different from your piano style. What was it about Les's album or his style that that is a great record. That record
It
holds
is.
its own some 50 years later.
Hmm. Well, I mean, as you know, if you know, I'm sure you do, about Les McCann's life, there is a lot of fearlessness. There is a lot of search for the truth in his entire life work, not just in his music. So there is an unquestionable honesty and an unquestionable energy and an unquestionable exhilaration in the music that can only come from that kind of strong person who lives life sincerely, earnestly, and that music flows through him. Um, effortlessly. And I always felt that that was one of my attributes as starting at a young age, that music is flowing effortlessly through me. You know, as a composer, as an improviser, not necessarily, obviously, in a style as some of the other effortless players in the world, but that sense of music making was there, and also integrity and being a useful person in the world. That was also very important for me all the time. And I really felt that he stood up for a lot of things, Les McCann, which are very, very important. And they are just as important to me, you know, human rights, freedom, and anybody who would try to lead you down the wrong path, basically, of any kind. So, I mean, I could, even though, I must say, the first one I heard him, I was maybe 17 or 18. A friend of mine showed him. I didn't speak English then. So the music communicated all this to me. I didn't know about his life work. I didn't know about his views. I didn't know the lyrics to any of the songs that they are singing, but the music spoke to me. And it was always like this. I always felt that I got to know musicians through their music, like I sat down with them and had a coffee together, or we had a long chat. And that's what I teach my students at Berklee College too, you know, that you have to sit with people whom you really like.
Right.
You have to not just jump from one person to another. Let's transcribe this, so let's transcribe another guy. Now let's check somebody else out tomorrow. But get to know your heroes.
Right.
Like you feel that you not just know their music, you know the person by the end.
Laszlo, you have done some very important things as far as the education component that you just mentioned. You know, I was told that you were the first person that graduated from the Berklee School of Music, and they gave you a position at the university after you finished. Is that true?
That's what I heard. I mean, I don't know exactly the history of the school, but I certainly got offered a position in the piano department right away as I graduated from there. So I haven't seen that happen since, and I haven't heard about happening that before I was offered that either. So that was quite an honor, and especially being hired as a piano teacher. And now I'm a full professor, but you know, I went through the various levels of professorship over the years, but right away they saw that this person would be very beneficial to the piano students, not like just classes or harmony or ear training, teaching, but specifically piano and composition. I mean, which comes with any piano lesson. You know, if they bring their compositions, you help them with the compositional aspect as well.
You're in good company. You got Terry Lynn Carrington
Oh,
up
boy.
there. You've got, you know, and Danilo Perez, who supported. Sure. He was one of my very first pace reports when I first started this. That's he supported me throughout the years.
Don is wonderful. Yeah, he's wonderful. He was there. You know, he came a little bit after me, and I remember we talked a lot about those times when I was already in my second or third year, actually second year, I think, in Boston, and he just came at that time and the beginnings. I still remember seeing him playing at a small club Riles upstairs in Solo, and he saw me playing at a little place called Café Bouquet, which was a funny little coffee shop. So we heard about each other, we checked each other out very early, and we remained good friends since then. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting how the band stage has allowed you to be in this position to teach. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things on the band stage that you're trying to implement to the next generation of musicians at Berklee?
You mean from performing experience, what I would want to convey to them? You know, the hardest thing about for a developing musician to keep the right balance between what they learn consciously about the music and to nurture their inspiration. So you got to teach them how to teach themselves through the way you taught yourself. Because a lot of this music, you have to find your own method for your own development. And since I've been teaching for over 30 years now, I'm in the position to have seen a lot of different kind of talent. So I have distinct ways of approaching each kind of talent, how I can keep them both inspired and learning. Because sometimes that's very hard for the pedagogical point of view, whether you gonna help a person or just settle them with a lot of knowledge that kind of weighs them down, or you just let them go free because you are already so good, we don't know what to teach you, just go out and play. And then that they hit a wall at one point in their career because there wasn't enough foundation. So give them the foundation while nurturing the inspiration. That's the challenge with everybody.
Some of your piano influences? Because, you know, going back to this live solo piano, you know, when I think of great solo pianists, jazz recordings, there's always the Mount Rushmore of them, which is the Keith Jarrett record.
Right.
And then there's
and Art Tatum.
Art Tatum. And Brubeck did one. Actually, Brubeck did 3 of them throughout his career. And McCoy Tyner. I saw a lot of McCoy Tyner on the band stage tonight. Was he one of your influences?
Yeah, I would think so. But generally, I always felt that I couldn't just pinpoint several people because I was listening to so many great players, and I always felt that it's like, again, getting to know them and getting influenced by certain aspect of their music. But I never set out to copy somebody and hope someday I'm going to branch out into somebody on my own path. Somebody else. But what I really wanted always is to find great moments in each of these great pianists' music that inspire me. And then you feel, okay, maybe I can do something with this. Maybe I can develop something out of this that I hear. So I can't really say just a number of people, but McCoy Tyner, Keith Jarrett, Herbie Hancock, Bill Evans, Les McCann, Bela Bartok, you know, Stravinsky, Keith Jarrett, certain rock bands in my youth, you know, and a lot of great blues like Big Mama Thornton, Robert Johnson. You have to listen to a lot of great vocalists and guitar players in blues to get the idea of the blues. You can't just listen to piano players. And a lot of great gospel players. I mean, listening to Mahalia Jackson, even though obviously she's a vocalist, but you learn so much as a musician in general if you listen to amazing musicians of all kinds of instruments or vocals. So I can't really just pinpoint a few people, but I would say that I love to listen to a lot of music because I never feel that they're going to sway me in a direction away from myself. But I'm able to absorb things that are inspiring to me in them without mimicking anything, you know. So I can give you a list because we would be sitting here for a week.
Laszlo Gardony, what does jazz music mean to you?
Jazz music always meant a level of nurturing to the soul, mine and others. Because I feel that the process, how this music is created and listened to, is so rejuvenating. It just keeps you centered in the right frame of spirit and right frame of mind. So it's a treasure. It's something that we have to treasure, nurture, and do it right. Because if we turn it into just a museum act, in a sense that, okay, we know the language, we know what was before us, but we don't want to remember the spirit of the greats, just the notes, what they played, then we lose the most important element. When I play a solo concert or a trio or a sextet, and you can see it in the audience after the concert, that there is a sense of community, there is a sense of brightness in the room. There is a sense of elation, that's the word. So that's what a great life that is, when you can work real hard and you throw out this music, but you enjoy yourself doing it, and then you see other people connecting over it, connecting to themselves, connecting to each other. That's the most important thing. It's a communal music, in a sense. It brings people together in deep levels that a lot of other listening experience may not, when it's more just there's a separation somehow between the listener and the music. There is some level of community comes with jazz, always, I feel. That's why we call it the jazz community and not the jazz scene. That's a word for it too, but the jazz community is definitely something that I feel really great about.